Hey everybody, good morning. It is just like a minute after 8 or so here on the US East Coast in November 8th. And Rich and I are back and we're going to keep poking at ASP.NET and .NET config for a little bit. I think we got a good start yesterday, but there's probably more questions. So
I would think there are.
yeah, so we're back. And then I was trying to remember a recap real quick of what we did yesterday, and I think it was mostly putting config in user secrets, took a good look at user secrets.
Yeah.
The app settings, JSON, and then we kind of studied the order of precedence, I think.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
found out you could use an INI file again as a configuration.
Yeah. You can add INI files. Yeah. It's the only thing we didn't actually run it, but
Right.
I'm definitely, it might be interesting to play with. Well, I don't know how interesting it would be. So one thing today, as I switch over to our code view, is, I love doing this. This is the Linux box.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to try that.
Nice. Oh,
Let me,
I almost
go ahead.
forgot. Since we kind of jumped into it, we were talking about this. So there is a new video up on the Visual Studio Tools UI team.
Okay.
And I'm going to drop the URL in the chat, but it is a local MVP of ours. Bill Wolf did a session on Playwright.
What's that yesterday?
That showed up yesterday. Yeah.
Okay. I actually knew this was coming and I didn't
Oh,
see
wow.
what day
Okay.
it was. I meant to I feel bad now. I meant to watch it so that everybody would see.
So I listened to, since a lot of what I do, since I have an hour commute in, I will listen to videos on the way in. So I did get to listen to it. And it was from this Code Camp session. It was very similar to that, but it was good to hear it again, essentially. So
here it is. Cool. Hold on.
There you go.
I was hoping to jump to a later spot. There he is. Very cool.
Very nice. Yeah. So they had some good questions from the community who were watching live when he did it. I guess it was yesterday, but good to see this that content from Bill up there.
Yeah, you're right. He presented this at Code Camp. I actually saw the talk live talking about using Playwright. But what's interesting is the little spin on it is using Playwright. He really drilled in. I mean, he may have done more here, but he really drilled into using it for testing APIs.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I think most people think of Playwright and they're like, okay, Selenium type thing. We'll test our website with it. And so there's a little bit of nuance there, which I think is cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly great for that. And that's, probably, I think Puppet was the original implementation of that code base. That's kind of how it started. But Playwright is that's what Puppet was for as well, was test your website. So little shout out to Bill there.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So since we're on command line today, so I'm going to create a configuration project here. What I do is I tend to have like a source folder here. It's really just my home folder and then source, as we can kind of see up there. Oh, you know what? Zoom it doesn't work so well in this situation. Oh, what a bummer. Because the control key is being taken by I wonder if there's a way I can figure that out. So in any case, here we go. Brand new project. Let's move over to it. I don't really have to do anything. I can get it to start building just with .NET Run. I haven't even opened a tool set yet, and it should just pop open.
And that's a core web app, right? Not a Blazor app, not a, because you said Razor, right?
I chose Razor here. In fact, that's actually a really good point. While this is opening up, let's because I think just clicking this, it will open it in Firefox. I wonder if I had to hold it a little bit, or do I have to control click it? I did. I had to control click it. So there it is. It works. Configuration. That's great. Let's close that. So you make a good point. Sometimes I do think maybe rushing a little bit too far ahead. If you say .NET new list in the SDK, you get this is the default list. I haven't added any other templates. So that's an interesting thing, is you can add templates. These can be templates from partners.
or your
tooling
organization.
providers.
Yeah.
You could have it internally, internal templates. Just like we talked about AZD, maybe you want to have a template for .NET New. If you want to have the whole infrastructure built out, then I think AZD was a great tool for that. And we have a whole show on that. So a couple shows, several shows.
Yeah.
So I picked Razor, which is the short name for ASP.NET Core Web App. You could also have said Web App. And you end up getting a Razor Pages app. If you want Model View Controller, that's right here.
And it still is there, even in .NET 8. It's not going away.
No. It's still, it's the three choices for full blown ASP.NET Core UI frameworks are Razor, MVC, and Blazor. You don't see the Blazor one in this list because I'm using .NET 7 here.
Oh, okay.
I just didn't see the need. Yeah.
It's a similar list for .NET 8, to be fair.
Yes.
Okay.
It is. I didn't see the need to use 8 for this particular thing because we're talking about config, and I don't think this code's changed for years.
Right. Okay.
So that's what I did, and that was a great call out. I appreciate that. And we end up with our basic files. I'm going to let Visual Studio Code open. The only thing I think I've installed in here is the C# dev kit. I think that's it. So I guess there's a couple other things in here. Or really, it was the C# dev kit because I think it installs
the IntelliCode, or asks you if you want to.
Yeah.
Cool.
I am logged into it. So there's a whole scene here where you can use your Visual Studio licensing to log into this and get all the features. So yeah, here's our project, and we did some things last time, like we have our app settings JSON. What I'm going to do this time, I think, is we'll keep this simpler instead of all the stuff we did to kind of like look through providers and things like that, which was fine. Is we will just let's open up the page. This could, like you said earlier, Rich, this could be an MVC app, it could be a Blazor app. That's not really the point. And I don't need any of this. We're just going to be quickly just pushing out settings. And I'm going to start with just a simple my setting. And let's, I'm even cheating a little bit here. I'm not sure that you'd really want to inject the eye configuration directly into a page because I just don't know why.
Right.
But because we want to expose it, we're going to do the simplest thing, and we're just going to ask it to go out and get the setting. Now, that could be null, and then I don't know what would happen. Maybe it would be, in fact, I don't know. Should we see? Should we see what would happen if it's null? Because I don't think I'll go ahead and run it in a debugger. And to be fair, there's no app settings in here. Yeah, so there shouldn't be a... I have not created an app setting. No, I don't care about that. I wasn't trying to debug that. I need to say that this is a .NET 5. I'm trying to figure out why it's not creating. Maybe this is why. Okay. So I needed a launch setting, a launch.json, so that's done. And now we'll try running. I've kind of been wondering if it's easier just to go to the terminal and let it .NET run, and would that be quicker? I don't know. We'll see.
Interesting. Why do you think it might be quicker?
I don't know.
Okay. I'm just curious.
I had no good reason. Okay, so now it is saying, yeah, I haven't done anything with certs, which maybe we could try to figure out, but it's also listening on 5248. So 5248. And oh, it redirected. Of course it, because of course it did. Let's try this real quick. I don't remember how easy this is. Okay, all right, let's do .NET help, and there's dev certs. That's what it is. So there's dev certs, and I'm going to get help for that. And there's just one command. So let's see. I don't know that this works for Firefox, though. That's the thing. Because if I remember correctly, Firefox uses its own certificate store. So here's what we're going to do. And here's why this works. In the launch JSON here that was generated by Visual Studio Code, if I remember correctly, is definitely trying to open an HTTPS version of this, or it's allocating both ports. And in fact, I'm not sure that it's because it's Visual Studio Code. I think we're getting a little bit of help from Kestrel here, saying, yeah, I'll open up both ports. But ironically, if I do it from the command line, then what happens is it only tries to open. See, it just opens this one and then says, well, it didn't even bother doing the HTTPS redirection.
Interesting.
I'm not going to say I know why.
Yeah, I was going to say, because sometimes you run it and you see both.
Yeah. And so why does this work? Well, because the redirection middleware blows up saying like, but wait, you didn't give me an HTTPS port, so I give up. And it goes ahead and lets me through. We're going to chalk this up to expediency for getting things going, but definitely not.
Yeah, not the focus of today, but something that maybe come back to.
This came back null, and so the Razor pages, like whole world, did me a favor and just didn't blow up. It just was smart enough to say like, well, you probably just don't want to render it then. We've seen that before in Blazor components. If a Blazor component takes an attribute and you supply that attribute via Razor syntax, and then that turns out to still evaluate to null, then Blazor's smart enough to say like, well, then I just won't render the attribute. And then that way everything's fine.
Nobody gets hurt.
Yeah. So this setting isn't set anywhere. Let's set it in app settings. It's funny. Oh, I know. Like, why are you yelling at me? It's because I didn't use quotes and say setting from app settings.json. Okay. We'll do nothing more than that. We'll go back to terminal. I wonder if I really even need to restart this, actually. Because the Razor page itself is grabbing the setting.
Okay.
So it just went and invoked it and said like, oh, yeah, there it is. App settings JSON. Yay, app settings JSON wins. Okay, great. So I am going to restart the app because if I supply remember we said command line was one of the big winners. So what if I do this? If I supply a command line parameter, my setting, and say set from command line, then that won.
Nice.
And if I remember, command line was like the big winner.
Yeah, it's like last in, right?
Yeah, in the default.
Yes.
Default, which was, here it is right here. Default application configuration sources and command line arguments was the top priority. Environment variables is pretty high. So do I remember how to do my environment variables in Linux? I think this is it. So I think I say export my setting equals, and then do I have to put it in quotes, I wonder?
Not quotes.
No. I think I could also say, I could also do this if I don't want to make it too hard. If I set this out there and then run the app, but don't put the command line setting in this time, is this going to override our app settings? It is. So it's still ahead in the game. Command line number 1, environment was number 2, user secrets we don't have right now. And so then if I take all the rest of these out, app settings will win. Okay.
And I will say, if you wanted to put spaces in there, you could quote what's on the right side of the equals. You didn't need it at the beginning, which is
Oh, I see what you were saying. So you were saying I could have done this.
Yep, with spaces then. Or
Cool.
yep. And you could echo $my setting.
Nice.
Boom.
And our app is not open, so I have to run it. I mean, our web server is not running. So come back. Okay, that's all there. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did a lot of this yesterday, but there's some things that we didn't do. We started looking at it. We made no changes to program CS.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fair to say a lot of us do that. I think a lot of us kind of just go with this, except that we probably inject dependencies and then maybe we add a middleware piece if we really need it. So that means this default builder applies to a lot of us. And yesterday we looked at the default builder's code. In fact, this happens to be it, so that we could see that documentation come to life in the code of how it's going through those things in reverse order here, because the way the configuration system works is each of these overwrites the other until you get to the winner, which command line.
Mm-hmm.
What if I wanted to add to this and say, which I think I can do. So create builder returns a builder. So I think I can do this. I think I can build off that builder and say configuration. Let's add, we'll add a second JSON file, but what we're going to do is we're not going to use the same name. We'll call it second settings. So that way it's very obvious that we're doing something else.
Okay.
I don't want the app to blow up if it's not found. So I'm going to say that it's optional. And then there's there's a ton of parameters in here. So I'm using C#'s like named parameters feature to kind of skip ahead to the ones that I want instead of like null, 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 or whatever the whole kit and caboodle is for that.
Right.
Because if actually we look at it, there's a bunch of overloads, although I guess that would have been fine. That overload would have worked. So it doesn't matter. Okay. So what I've done now, the app will still work because of optional.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's
wow! I exploded sky high because maybe you can't. Maybe I can't. Maybe I can't chain it that way.
So what's the error under the red squigglies giving you?
My configuration builder does not contain a definition for services. And I feel like maybe it's because the builder that this returned, is it a different builder? Oh, it's a configuration builder. See, this returns a web application builder. And what I did is I just transformed it to a configuration builder. So, hey, we just learned something. We learned don't try to chain that. Instead, take your new builder and just use it separately. I did kind of, that wasn't how my code looked in the little sample I was kind of before we started.
Right.
But it just shows sometimes I try to say like, well, maybe I'll learn something if I, so let's fix that. Yeah, look at that red. Woo. That's like, get out of here. So, okay, it's hosted, it's running, and everything stays the same because we do have an environment variable.
Yep.
But what if I come back here and we create that file I was talking about? What is it? Second settings. .json, and this is just a JSON file, and it's really not that special. It's setting from second settings. Okay. I don't even think I have to restart the project. Maybe I'm wrong, because it's possible that it didn't load the file.
Yeah, because that should get on startup, right? So if it's not done by the time, if you change anything after startup, you got to restart.
It could be that it said, well, I didn't find it, so I'm not, because I made a change to app setting. Well, anyways, let's see. We'll test a couple things here instead of just guessing. So I'll run it again.
Fun.
And so refresh this. Oh, I'm still not getting, environment is still winning here. Is that, why is environment still winning? Why did we not add, let me think about that. I'm trying to come up with a couple reasons why, and maybe.
So do we want to check and make sure that the settings are loading by having a second variable in there and show that?
Oh yeah, sure. That makes good sense. Why? Oh, actually, I have a good reason why they're not loading, because I don't think this is ending up as part of the build.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Here, let's go prove that. But you make a good point. So let's close this. Second, let's put a second setting in, because you said let's do it just like you said. Second setting. Yeah, I think, well, I don't know. We're going to find out.
Need a comma? Yeah, there you go.
All right. And then we come back here.
You got to save it.
I think I didn't save it. You're right. So second setting, and there's a capital S, and although I don't know that that's case sensitive, and we will save all of that. Come back out. That's a different terminal. Okay, so this is loaded. Run this. No one else has this, so it is loading. Oh, so I was wrong. And the setting is still coming from environment. I thought, I wonder, when we added the new configuration, I thought that it would be the highest priority, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
Check.
Yeah.
Should we check yeah, where does custom configuration fall on that list of order?
Yeah, there's some other place to look here, though, because this isn't really custom configuration. This is using a provider that's built in, but using it again, basically saying, hey, I want you to read this file, and then I want you to read that file. There is, let me think, there is a dot. What is it that I'm thinking of? I'm thinking specifically of a different pattern to add configuration, and it's not this. But it certainly is driving me crazy right now. So let's see if I can find it real quick. If not, then we just have to move on, because I was pretty sure that there was a way for me to say I want to add my configuration and I want it to be the new priority. So
is that one of the options in the method, or in between the parentheses?
It might be. The thing is that I feel like there's a second method that I have forgotten about here. I don't think I have to create a new config builder.
Okay.
I feel like you can add another one, but let's see. we said builder.configuration and we added. Okay. I mean, look, there's one way to do this, but this is something I wanted to look at later, but this isn't exactly the same thing. Is I wanted to try doing builder.configuration.sources.clear. That's a different thing. Clear is going to blow all the configuration sources away, and then the only one we would be left with is add JSON file. So now I'm kind of wondering, what if I look at add? And except the problem is I don't know what add takes. I don't want a new one. See, and I don't think this is it. I really don't. I feel like it wasn't add configuration. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, because part of me feels like I've done this where I've said, okay, you're now like the top priority, and just because I added you last, right?
Right.
So let's see if we can find real quick adding configuration. And it's funny because I thought that I searched this and kind of had a sample, but apparently I don't. So order of precedence when configuring, that's great. There is a blog post. This is a pretty old blog post that I didn't share yesterday from 2018.
Oh.
Talks about this new configuration API because this was new, and it's still back when we had startup and program CS and they were separate. And so that was I just find that interesting that, like, wow, it's been this way from the beginning. So let's see, combining service collection. Is this what I want? Create builder, add razor pages. No, this isn't it. This isn't it. Now, this is talking about all the different other ways to do things, which is useful because they actually have examples for every provider, which I think we talked about last time.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do was say, okay, like, here's a custom configuration provider. Let's see how they do this. Okay. So when they create a custom configuration provider, that's the config provider. And then they accessed, that's still not it. Create builder, add razor pages, configure. That's still not it. I was trying to see where they add this stuff in, and I might have scrolled by it. It's possible that I scrolled by it, because you figure the program CS has to be modified to access this new type of configuration that they do in this whole sample where they create a custom configuration provider. So here's configuration value, configuration source, configuration provider. And then, this shows how to use it. Okay, so builder.configuration. Yeah, but this is the brand new one, the add EF configuration. So, but it's interesting that, so let's see. What if I say this? What if I say, well, shoot, because I really wanted to show how you could add another provider and not have to wipe everything out.
Right. I mean, according to the, interesting. Yeah, I don't see anything specific in the parameters for that method to make it a priority. It all comes down to order that it was added, from what I'm reading.
Yeah, but we're adding it at the end. We're adding it after the builder is created, unless,
well, which other configurations might already be in there or not, right? We should be able to get a list of.
Yeah, all the other ones should be there. So, for example, what if I breakpoint? What if I just run this and let it hit the breakpoint? Okay, so we hit here and we have configuration, and here's the list of sources, and there are 9, and I can have those enumerated. And so, like, here they all are. And my JSON one is here at the bottom, I think.
Right. That's your file provider.
Yep, there it is, second settings, right?
Yeah.
And it's 8th in the list. And so what I wanted is I wanted it to kind of win over this one up at the very top, which was, well, maybe not that one, this one, which is basically just an environment variable comparison.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't seem to be doing that unless I'm just mistaken, like I've been going too quickly. And then of course this didn't work because it can't bind. Yeah, it can't bind it. Somebody else is using it. Did I need to, is it silly? Is it as silly as just me needing to run this again? Like, did I confuse myself? Well, we're going to find out. Nope. My setting is still coming from environment. And I wanted second setting to be the winner, right? And does second setting have, oh, it has a my settings. Look at that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that'll do it. But then why doesn't, then
Well,
why don't we
because
see?
there is a my setting in place. It's an environment.
Yeah. And I was thinking, why don't we see in my settings? Because we don't have it on the page.
Right. Right. Boy, I hope this is it, because then it'll be worthwhile. Then it'll be like, hey, look, this can happen to you.
Right.
We're going to find out. And setting from second
There you
settings.
go.
Okay. So this is what I thought I would be demonstrating. That if you, after creating the builder, which gets you the default precedence that we talked about, that you can then start adding your own configuration, and that it becomes, each one becomes, now it's the new highest priority. And if I add another one, it's now the highest priority.
Right.
Pretty sure about that. Like I could now, I mean, I suppose I might as well just see it since I've already put enough time into this. We might as well go for broke and say third settings, and then we will copy and paste this and then rename it. And I want to say that in the third file, my whole goal here is to prove that you still get the default precedence that you see in the documentation, but now you can say I'm higher precedent and I'm even higher precedent. And that's without using the clear, which we sort of zoomed by.
Right. You could totally start from scratch on run, basically.
Yeah. So now it's, again, we're basically layering on more and more precedents. So there it is.
Cool.
I wasn't totally crazy.
No. I like I said, read the docs. That's how it should work.
Yeah, I'm sitting here going like, what's going on? Why isn't it doing it? But I thought, well, am I teasing myself? And so yeah, there are so many of these different providers. We laughed a little bit about the INI config one. We laughed about that. I don't have an Azure Key Vault set up because that might have been interesting to read out of there.
Yeah.
There are some other things you can do. Like we commonly, I think maybe I'm wrong. A lot of people, I think, access configuration this way, but I don't have to. I can do this. I can say config.get value, and this can be typed. And then I can say my setting. And furthermore, I believe I can also provide a default value. At least I think so, right?
Type and then string.
Config.
So it might be a different overload, but it wants a like string is your type, right?
Yeah. I was surprised that it's not.
It's not taking what's in the angle brackets.
Yeah, it's not using the generic piece. I was kind of thinking, is it because is this a thing? Well, it seems to like that more, except the problem is it's not default, right?
Right.
What other overloads are there?
There's default value.
Yeah. Now, see, that's the one that I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
That's an
Oh, because
extension method, though.
yeah, you put too many things in it.
Yep.
It just needed the key. Although, but then that's it.
See, here's the thing. I wonder if you can't, in Razor syntax, I wonder if, I don't want to belittle Razor syntax. There's probably nothing wrong with it. But I wonder if I can't use a generic there in Razor syntax. I just don't know.
Oh.
That could be totally just a me thing, and that I'm sitting here. People are gonna, somebody's gonna walk around and say like, "Oh, I thought you couldn't use generics in Razor," and of course, it's got nothing to do with it. And so, oddly enough, I've now grabbed the setting from a different place. But that was the point. Is like, hey, let's get the value and strongly type the result. Instead of getting this here, instead of playing in here, I wonder if we're better off moving to the CS file. And so when somebody calls it, we'll inject configuration. And I'm going to have to save this so that it's available to us in the method. So if you're not familiar with Razor pages, by default, you get an onGet method, which is going to get called when somebody tries to use the page just with your typical get. And oops, I almost spelled it all correctly. Okay, so now that I've done that, let's see if we can do what I was talking about. And then okay.
It seems to like that.
And maybe it does, and it's even telling me like you don't really need to declare the generic here. Okay, so we'll get a couple of these, and we'll say what else can I do? Well, you know what? I think what we're going to do is we will not bother looking at the web page.
Just go through code.
Yeah, we'll just go ahead and, because what I could do is I could create a model and we could wire this up in the web page, but we're more interested in how configuration works.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want a strongly typed return value instead of using what we were doing before, it does mean that we're going to, oh, that's right, because of the whole, there's a way I can deal with that. I can say, let's just not use HTTP redirection. Let's just not use it. And then I think we'll be okay. Watch, I'm wrong. I don't really need this breakpoint anymore.
No.
And the app still works because it can't. Oh, this time it's
the
because the address is already in use. So that's my fault. I can recycle the app. And now it's like, okay, much better. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, complain all you want, because I don't care that much, because
we're just going to,
at least I think I don't care that much. I want this. See, that's how lazy I was, is I just opened it that way. Okay, so we got what we wanted on get fired, because I triggered this Razor page.
Yeah.
So on get fired, it went ahead and grabbed configuration. My setting was set from third settings, which was the current priority, and the no setting is not found, so it uses that default.
Right.
So this is something you can do that's a little bit stronger than using the index accessor. Which I think a lot of us kind of, this is how we cut our teeth on config. is doing things this way, where you say, hey, go find the particular value. The thing is this isn't typed at all. And so there's some, magic going on behind saying like, well, is this an integer? Did you ask for an integer? Okay, fine. I'll make all that work. But this thing, I think now, if I change this to an int and then say the default is 99, which I don't even really need a default. But if I do this, now I think we're in trouble.
No, it's coming back.
Yeah, it's still coming back. And then I love how it redirects over there. Okay, so yeah, it totally blew up. Failed to convert configuration value at my setting to int32. So that's, if you need a strongly typed version of the configuration, then, obviously what I've done here is I said, well, this has got to be an int, and then it wasn't. So that threw an exception, but I'm pretty sure we also have a try get value. Or maybe we don't. I was going to say maybe we do. But we might as well go look. I mean, you could always... Oh, look at that. I do not see a try get value. So that means... unless there's something I'm missing. Then yeah, you definitely would have to get that correct, I suppose. A lot of times when you have, like for instance, have you ever used the convert methods?
Yeah,
they have a try get.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that, try from base64. Good enough. All right, I guess we don't have to worry about that. All right. Any other questions or any other things you want to look at? You can bind to your own model.
Yeah. So it's interesting, and maybe this is just Copilot talking, but it does say there's a configuration.tryGetValue.
Oh, really?
Maybe it's not. Maybe because aren't we?
I'm in this interface.
Yeah, maybe that might be the issue.
Right. Like maybe try_get_value. Are you saying is maybe part of
the configuration
whatever this interface is really implementing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would believe that. Oops, I don't actually want to search over there. Let's see what else can we do? I feel like we can try to insert our own custom config provider.
In like 10
in a few minutes? Yeah. Well, let's see. Because it won't be fancy.
Right.
Not just in a few minutes. Yeah. So let's say, what if we have a public class and we say TETS config provider, and I don't know, and we say what is it that we have to implement here? There is a class called configuration provider. And looks like this we were already bringing in here through configuration. So the Microsoft extensions configuration is probably being implicitly, it's probably part of the implicit usings. Yep. And so that works fine. Okay. Now, so it turns out this is an interesting thing. We're not implementing an interface. We are, yeah, we're deriving off of this class. I like how Copilot is taking a stab at like what the method might be, but I think it's wrong. Right, no method found to override. So I appreciate that. I appreciate it. I believe that the method to override is load. That's interesting that got munged there. Did it again. Okay, and then I've got this funky thing. So overriding load. There is a sample in the documentation where they like override and then they go call a database and things like that. And I don't really want to do that. I kind of just want to see it work. So to me, I feel like there should be an easier way. Reloads the data for the provider, the configuration key value pairs. And so
I mean, if you just want to see it work, why don't you just bring in a class? Because it doesn't matter, right? I mean, ultimately, your database context is dropping that data into some typed class.
Yeah. So what I want to do is I want to show this in the documentation, maybe to make it a little easier to figure out, because I can show the sample. And the problem with the sample, in my opinion, not that there's any, actually, I don't want to say there's a problem with the sample. No, when they create a custom configuration provider, they go off and say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to read pairs from a database, and we'll use an entity framework. That's fine. I think there's a lot of things they're demonstrating here, but it's like it's demonstrating it all. I mean, all this huge thing. Like now I've got to bring an entity framework, and now I've got to have a connection string for that. And where's that going to come from? So they create like a second configuration source, and it's like, okay, I really just want to create a quick configuration provider. So I need to override load. Fine. But when you just look at this code, it's not entirely clear what else you have to do. So if we look at the configuration provider class itself,
right?
This is the class that we're going to override. We're going to derive off of an override. We need to override load. But one of the things that isn't clear is there is already a data property and it's protected. And so this is the dictionary that we're filling up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when I said data.add, that might be mysterious. Like, well, where did that come from?
Yeah, exactly. That was right. My thought. Yes.
It's already in the config provider.
Okay.
So here's the nice thing. Adding a key value pair is pretty straightforward. And I can say, I'm gonna have one that's unique to this provider, tddst config, and we're gonna say join us for stand up because that one's unique.
Yep.
And then let's do our favorite and let's override the one we've been doing this whole time, my setting. And we're gonna say from tdts config provider.
Yep.
Okay, so simplest possible config provider that I think can work. I don't know that it implements everything that you need for every situation, including the reload override.
Oh, true. Yes.
Yeah, because there's a reload override here on reload.
Reload. Yep.
Or actually, it looks like this is more an event. And then you can also override toString, and you can also override try-get. Okay, great. That's awesome. But we're not going to do any of that. Now what we want to do is we want to use it. So it should be as simple as just adding this provider. But what we don't have is we don't have that like extension method syntax that we see being used up here with add JSON file, right? So we can either create one or let's see, do we need the config source? I think we might. Let's see, entity framework. I think we might need a config source. Where is that? Create a class that implements iConfiguration source. Okay. Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do that real quick. Public class tdts config source. And this implements iConfiguration source.
Yep.
Okay. And what we need, there must be a method that we absolutely must implement. Right. And it looks like it's probably build.
Yeah.
I think it's build. iConfiguration provider. Build. and build takes a builder. I guess this makes sense. And then I suppose this is an opportunity for you to do whatever you need to do to new up your provider. In our case, our provider is super simple.
Yep.
I think we don't even need an options action. We don't need any of that. So our provider has no options. It's not taking a function for you to configure it. It's not like the EF sample where maybe you got to provide a connection string. Like, we're just slamming data in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we need anything. And then what we could do is we could very quickly implement the extension method, I think. We'll see. Okay, and then public static builder. Whoops, I spelled it wrong. So yes, the extension method. This is when you figure that all these niceties. We're going to say add TDTS config. That's going to be the name of our method.
Okay.
And then because it's an extension method, I have to include this little magic basically. And we don't need any more than that. And so I didn't even need to make that complicated. And all this is going to do is say return, take the builder, and add a provider. And that's new. So I don't even know that I needed the source. I may not have needed that. Oh no, wait. I need to say that this is the config source. So I did need that. All right. And that's because the add method, I don't know. Did you have something?
You're fine. There was the trailing parenthesis there. I want to make sure you got it.
So configuration builder's add method wants a source. We implemented the source, the simplest possible source that could be, which just news up the provider. And why does the provider so simple? Because it doesn't do anything. Like, it's just, here are some values. That's what they are.
And we add it to the data dictionary, which already exists.
Right. So now I should be able to use my brand new extension method up here and say configuration add TDTS config, and there's nothing to it.
No.
Okay. That was a little ways to get there. Let's see. All right. Open up. And the input string from TDTS config was not in a you know what? Because of the int32 stuff.
That.
Yeah. Okay. That's all right. Let's go.
That blew up for a reason.
Yep. Frankly, I don't know that well, let's go ahead and do this. Set this back to string. Say none found. I didn't spell string correctly. Run this again. I think some people, I wasn't sure if we had a comment to respond to.
Take a look. I did have them up here. Boom.
And this is actually going to run, and it pulled the settings from the TDTS config provider, even the second setting. And that's just because of what the second setting came from there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does it, from the TDTS config provider?
Why would second setting come from that?
Yeah. Okay, join us before stand up from TDTS. So my setting came from here.
Yeah. And we don't have TDTS configuration setting.
Right.
Or we don't show the TDTS config is what I should say.
Oh, here's why. Because look at that.
Oh.
I goofed there. Okay. So final thing is there was one setting that only our provider knew, and it's this one.
UTS. Yep.
This was the only one that our provider knew. So we are going to put it here, and we're going to grab it there, and it's going to be the last one on the form. And this will be it. At least should be. Famous last words. This will be it. This will get us out of here with a custom configuration that you can add to your pipeline. You could make it the highest priority, and it will pull out. Nobody has second setting, but the second setting one, we are now overwriting my setting from our own provider, and then our provider provides a third configuration setting that nobody else has. So there it is.
Nice. Very well done. Yeah.
We got through a couple things.
Yeah. But the important thing is, if you need a custom provider for whatever reason, because all the out-of-the-boxes don't fit your needs, you can bring wherever your configuration settings are into your application.
Yep.
That's the cool part.
Yep. And today we did it all in Linux. So yesterday we were in Visual Studio. That's the thing I like doing. Just everything works. It's portable. Take this project over to Visual Studio. It's going to work fine.
Yeah.
So that's it. I know it's almost time for stand-up for me and you, and it might be for you too watching. So
cool.
Anything else? I appreciate you bringing up Bill's talk.
Yeah, definitely.
Everybody go watch Bill Wolf's talk.
Definitely go see that. That was fun.
We'll try to see you later in the week. Leave some comments. Let us know what else you'd like us to look at. We know .NET 8 is right around the corner. Everybody's got to be excited about that. But until next time, we'll see you all on the Dev Talk.